The story for today comes from the Reddit user 02321. The pumpkin patch was simply the wrong place at the wrong time. It's hard to believe this happened 5 years ago. Every time Halloween rolls around and I see the flood of pumpkins in stores and on porches, I'm reminded of the strangest night of my brother's experience. My mother left my father when I was around 10 or so. I was never upset over that. Even at that age, I knew we were better off not having him around. It took her 6 years to find another partner, and he came with a son, a new stepbrother 3 years younger than myself. I struggled to find things in common with him. He liked video games, I liked sports. He watched flashy cartoons, and I went to parties. I did like him, but any time we spoke, it was hard to keep a conversation going. He started to draw, which extended into pumpkin carving. He also wanted to dress up as one of the characters in his shows. Something Japanese with a weird outfit and a wig he styled himself. I thought it looked kinda lame, but never would say that to his face. Whatever made him happy, I was glad to support it. A few days before Halloween, I was on my way out of class and I saw something sticking out of the trash in the gray morning light. I also didn't see the pumpkin my little brother carefully carved some sort of cartoon animal into. I lifted the trash lid to see his wig and costume sitting on top. That worried me. It worried me a lot. The cardboard sword he made snapped in half and stained with trash, but I could save the rest of the costume. I gathered it up and went inside, my parents in the kitchen about to head to work. They saw the costume in my hand and knew something I didn't. Colin is in his room. He said he's not feeling well and we're letting him stay home today, my mother explained. I set the costume down on the table and knew I was going to be late for school. I honestly didn't care. I might not be good at being a big brother yet, but I need to try. I went up to his room, his door still covered with mini posters of his favorite characters. I knocked, but let myself in, spotting my brother hiding under the covers. Hey, buddy. I heard you're not feeling good. Do you want me to get you something? I offered. Don't you have school? He said from under his blankets. I can skip a class, or a whole day if I want. I said, hoping that's a good answer. No, it's fine. I stood awkwardly in the doorway looking at the figures and plushies he carefully collected with his hard earned pocket money. Aside from how the girl figures were dressed, I didn't see anything wrong with him liking this stuff. I did try watching some of his shows, but I just didn't understand the appeal. And really, what was with the girls in those shows having so much cleavage? Wasn't that a bit too much for a cartoon? I walked over to his bed and sat down, knowing someone needed to talk to him about the missing pumpkin and costume issues. Why was your costume in the trash? I asked gently and waited. When he didn't answer, I kept going. Did someone tease you for it? A slight nod came from under the blankets. Jason, he smashed my pumpkin too. I can't prove it, but who else would have done it? My brother said, his voice sounding like he might cry. Listen, Jason's an asshole. We both know that. Do you really care what a jerk like him has to say? His opinion doesn't matter, I told him. That's pretty easy to say, but it still hurts, my brother brought up. Yeah, that made sense. It was hard to just ignore someone saying cruel things and destroying something you spend a lot of time on. I sat trying to think of something to help him feel better. I never been bullied before. I'm sure people tried, but I never cared about what they said. Colin was a bit more sensitive and honestly too nice for his own good. Yeah, it is easy to say, but saying it is the first step of making it true, right? Listen, this year might be the last one you can go trick or treating, and I want you to go with the costume you made. I'll go with you, so if Jason tries anything, I'll kick his ass. Colin poked his head out from under the blankets, eyes and cheeks red. I love the kid. I'd only known him for a few years, but I just didn't know how we could fully connect like brothers should. My sword is broken. I got upset. Besides, don't you work? I did have a part time job to pay for my car the moment I could drive. I still shouldn't be driving on my own yet, but I looked old enough, so I was careful to never get pulled over. Halloween was a very busy day, and I could get a load of trips, but I could work next year. We might not get another year of me being able to take care of him trick or treating. Don't worry about it. We'll buy you a new sword tonight, and I'll get you a pumpkin. We'll keep it inside until Halloween so nobody touches it. We'll get the best pumpkin, not a lame one from Walmart. One you'll pick out from the Harvard patch, like you wanted. The Harvard pumpkin patch was a bit of a drive out of town. It was the reason why Colin got a pumpkin from the store instead of making an event of picking one out. Both of our parents worked and I didn't have the time to get one for him early in the season. I swore tonight we would get a pumpkin the way he wanted. Thanks, Harvey, Colin whispered from under his blankets. At least he sounded a bit better. I don't think I really solved the problem, but this talk helped a little. I patted his blanket and got up to head to school. I was only a little bit late and my teachers didn't really care. My brother stayed home from school that day and I didn't blame him. I had no idea how long he was bullied. The pent-up emotions that caused him to rip his handcrafted sword and toss his costume might have been building up since the start of the school year. After tonight, and getting his choice pumpkin, I needed to talk with my parents to see what else could we do for him. My job kept me late because I told my boss I couldn't work on Halloween. Other people could cover me, but nobody worked as fast as I did. As punishment, I was forced to stay an hour later, even though I couldn't prove that fact. It was already dark by the time I got off work. I rushed home, still in my uniform. Colin finished dinner, and he sadly said it was fine, and he didn't need to go anywhere that night. I did what any big brother would. I picked him up and carried him to the car pretending like I was kidnapping him. We went to the party shop first for a new sword because it was going to be closed in 10 minutes. He picked out a plastic one that I thought looked pretty neat. He said it wasn't like a katana, but close enough. I didn't know the difference between any type of sword. Colin gladly explained it to me on the way to the pumpkin patch. I felt happy he finally cheered up a little and nodded along with a lot of Japanese names I didn't understand. We arrived to Harvard's, the parking lot empty and storefront dark. I cursed under my breath, wondering what to do. If the place was closed, I didn't know when we could come by again. I suppose on Halloween, after school or somewhere around there. But I knew it took Colin hours to carve his pumpkin. I wanted to give him time to make what he wanted and not rush his carving to have it done. I looked at my mirror and spotted Colin's defeated expression. This would not do at all. Come on, we're getting you a pumpkin, I told him and got out of the car. But that's stealing, he protested, but still followed me. It's not stealing. I'll pay for it. I'll slip the money under the shop's door or something. Don't worry about it. Even if we don't get caught, I'll take all the blame, I explained as I started walking towards the tall stone wall that enclosed the pen. I think the wall was more to keep people inside than keeping everyone out. The iron gate opened with no issue, and I winced at the noise. I expected the owners to come rushing out, but nothing happened. I did have enough money to pay for whatever we took. I didn't see anything wrong with what we were doing. My little brother tagged along with an extremely stressed look on his face. For some reason, he kept his fake sword in hand, as if it was some sort of comfort. I led him deeper into the patch, because most of the good pumpkins were already picked, for it was close to Halloween. I used my phone as a flashlight for us to see. I kept asking my brother which one he wanted, and he shook his head. His smile from before now returning. A few feet away from the wall, I spotted a decent sized pumpkin, and one pretty well formed, perfect for carving. How about this one? It looks pretty nice. Some good area to carve, I said, getting down low to shine the light on one that looked better. Yeah, that's good. We should get it and go, Colin replied, a nervous tone in his voice. I told you, it's not stealing. We'll pay for this. Here, hold my phone. I handed over the phone so I could try to remove the pumpkin from the vine, finding it kind of hard to do so. The vine thick and rough against my hands. I didn't want to snap the stem off either. The stem added character. I kept twisting and pulling. I pulled with all my strength, trying to snap it off, and did the one thing I didn't want to do. I snapped the stem too close to the pumpkin, ruining it. I cursed, my voice echoing through the dark field. We'll find another one. I'll figure out how, I told Colin, my hands raw from the failed effort. When I looked up to take back my phone, I was shocked to see tears in his eyes. It's alright. I don't need you to do any of this. I know wanting a pumpkin is childish, and I know you don't even like me. The last words were choked out in a sob, and I almost didn't make them out. I stayed on my knees and went over to him, my hands on his shoulders and chest aching. I really did a terrible job these past few years, if this is how he felt. How long did he let this idea sit and eat away at him? Was it the entire time we've known each other? Buddy, hey, I like you. I do. Just because I don't really get the stuff you like, that doesn't mean I really don't like you. I really should have put more of an effort into getting to know you. Even if your things are my things. I never should have made you feel the way you do. I'm not really good at this older brother thing. It just sort of happened, and I let myself get busy with work and school. I should have focused more on you because you're. My words got cut off by a sudden loud snapping sound that blasted through the field. The ground under our feet shook, and I wrapped my body around Colin, expecting something to fall from the sky. The sound loud enough to move the leaves and impact my chest. My ears slightly rang for a few seconds afterwards. We didn't dare move for a while, both of us scared to death. I pulled away but still kept Colin in my arms. We both looked around trying to figure out what the heck just happened. An explosion? No, I didn't smell smoke or see any sign of damage. What was that? Colin asked, his small voice scared. I have no idea. Let's leave and find out later, I told him. I took back my phone, the screen dark. So much for calling for help. We took a few steps forward and my foot got on something. I tugged on it, only to get caught again. With another tug, I found I couldn't get it free. Colin saw what I didn't, a small strangled noise coming from him. With the bright moon, I could see a vine wrapped around my ankle. I was confused on how I stepped in a way to get my foot tangled up in a vine. When the vine started to curl around my ankle, I didn't think of anything. I just picked up my brother, tore my foot free, and then started to run. I jumped over pumpkins and dodged vines trying to grab us. This could not be happening. I didn't understand how any of this was real. The leaves and vines in front of us bunched up and started to rise. We ran around it, only to have more of those shapes appear. To my horror, a tangle of pumpkins and leaves stood up, like a hell of a lot, like a 7-foot tall person. Colin screamed and I held him tighter. It's a curse, he said, and wrapped his arms around my neck so tightly I almost choked. Curse? Thinking back to it, I've heard a few different local legends of the pumpkin patch, all of which were a bit different. Most of them had to do with the pumpkin patch becoming some sort of creature when a virgin disturbed their slumber on a full moon night. The monster made a swipe for us, and I got lucky and dodged. I didn't care about curses or anything like that. I just needed to get Colin out of here. With so many more of the pumpkin creatures getting up, I doubted we'd had much of a chance of getting free. Some looked like people and others were massive snakes. The sound of the leaves rustling put me on edge. We were so close to the wall, but both our paths were blocked. Without any other option, I did the only thing I could. I tossed my brother through the only opening to let him land near the wall. He might have hurt his elbow or his knees on the landing, but at least he didn't get caught. The large hand of the monster wrapped around my chest and I could do nothing as it lifted me in the air. "Colin, run!" I shouted at him before the monster cut off my air. I watched completely helpless as my little brother tried to run along the wall towards the gate but got cut off, one of those snake creatures in his way. He needed to climb the wall, but his small body wasn't able. He desperately tried grabbing the bricks to lift himself up. If I was there, I could have easily lifted him over. I felt tears stinging my eyes. My regret of not being a better brother flooding in. The vines wrapped around my body tighter, and the creature started to drag me away. My mind raced through all the tales I heard as a child trying to figure out what it would do to us. Eat us. Plant us. Make us become one of them. I wanted none of that for Colin. I put all my strength into trying to get him free. The grip of the monster slipped for only a second to release the crushing press on my ribs. I took in some air, ready to shout out to my brother. In that moment, I wanted to tell him how much I loved him. The horrible truth coming to me when I realized not once since we knew each other I've said those words to him. The large hand came around my chest again, and this time it pinned me to the ground. My body pressed so hard into the dirt. Fear overtook me as I saw myself starting to sink into the ground. I struggled and prayed to whoever would listen to just let my brother live. And if possible, let me say a few words to him. Soon my head was the only thing above the ground, my body cold and in pain from the dirt being pressed around it. I wanted to cry when I saw one of those monsters about to reach Colin. I begged for someone, anyone, to help him. And by sheer luck, my prayers were answered by someone I would have never expected. A small body came over the wall, landing gracefully on the ground in front of Colin. The hair so white it shone through the darkness. The person stood about as tall as my brother, and I wondered why a child so suddenly appeared in the middle of the mess. I guessed it must be a boy. He quickly grabbed the fake sword in Colin's hand. The moment he took it, a silver light overtook the cheap plastic. Without any hesitation, the boy swung his sword, sending out a blinding flash of silver light throughout the field. It overtook my vision, and I passed out, unable to stay awake throughout the wave of odd light. When I woke up, I was on my back covered in dirt, my brother crying over my body, convinced I died. The boy who saved us standing off to the side. I sat up. My entire body was in pain, but I accepted a hug from Colin. I whispered how much I loved him and how sorry I felt that it took me so long to say this to him, but I got him to calm down. When we were both able to stand up, we looked around the now completely empty pumpkin patch. What the hell happened? I questioned, shell-shocked. It's a bit difficult to explain in a way that humans can understand. This land stands on a flow of magic, the boy started. The fake sword we bought earlier now in his hands, but now it was transformed into something bright and real. His eyes somehow hidden under wavy white hair, but I noticed they were red. His adult tone of voice and red eyes freaked me out, but Colin looked at him with stars in his eyes. Like a ley line? Colin offered. The boy nodded yet again. I had no idea what that meant. On occasion, the magic snaps and overflows into this world. It can mingle with the willpower and thoughts of humans to create something, the something that you saw here, for example. The magic fused with the years of rumors of this field and made what you witnessed.
I was lucky to be in the area and took care of this in time. I cannot give back the sword I took, but I'll pay you back for it in some way, the kid explained. I tried to let all that sink in. I didn't really want to believe all of this, but as long as Colin was safe, it didn't matter. Sorry you didn't get a pumpkin, buddy, I told him with my hands on my brother's back. Oh, I'll take care of that. A new voice came. When I turned to see the sound of it, I jumped and nearly picked up Colin again to make a run for it. Another bundle of leaves appeared, a dark opening for the face with glowing yellow eyes set inside the darkness. This is a servant of mine. I called them in order to regrow the patch. I do not wish to cause a scene, so cannot leave the scrub empty, the child said and walked over to the new monster. Servant? Really? What was this kid? Colin should be scared, but he looked to be really enjoying all of this. Do you have a crush? I whispered to tease him. It was what older brothers do, after all. I got a few punches to the gut, which I gladly took. We watched the boy and the plant monster make an exchange. The boy gave the creature a strand of his hair, which the thing happily ate. My shoulders crawled from the sight. The monster then shoved its plant hands into the ground, and for a moment nothing happened. Then the ground rumbled slightly. Before our eyes, the entire patch grew from the ground, pumpkins sprouting so fast they sprayed out of the dirt before they broke free. Within seconds, the entire field was covered with massive leaves and plants everywhere. I hate to point this out, but won't this cause more of a problem? I asked, staring at the full field now. When we arrived, the field wasn't this full. I doubted it looked like this at the start of the season. Do you want to bring some home? The boy said, his tone much more like a child now, and his face was slightly red from embarrassment. It was very clear they weren't expecting the patch to grow this much. We agreed to take some with us, and ended up with a car so loaded we didn't know what to do with it. And we didn't even know if the car would actually work with that much extra weight. Colin sat in front with a few pumpkins on his lap. The fear of the night faded into weird excitement. What about the rest? Asked the boy. We didn't even make a dent in the patch. He shrugged, looking out into the still full patch. The plant monster from before sitting off to the side, shoving a poor helpless pumpkin into where the face should have been. I hope it could eat a few thousand before the sun came up. I'll call a few others to help move them, he said, not as worried as before. Let me guess, you didn't want us to ever tell anybody of the night, or else you might kill us. The boy raised his head to meet my eyes confused. He shook his head as if I was crazy. You can tell anybody anything you want. I mean, who's gonna believe you? Just stay out of trouble. It appears you two were in the wrong place at the wrong time. I doubt you'll ever encounter something like this again. It's better you get going. It's a school night, isn't it? I smiled at the fact the child was worried about us getting up for school the next day. I really hoped we never came across anything like this again. Colin might have gotten as many pumpkins as he wanted, but we nearly died for them. My brother rolled down the car window to say goodbye to the boy before we left. Do you want to go trick-or-treating with us? Colin offered. The boy paused, his face red again. He did his best to keep his mysterious air, but failed. No, he lied. He really wanted to go. We gave him our address, and the time we would be heading out on Halloween, if he was able to make it. We then left the pumpkin patch without any clue of how to explain our bounty to our parents. We ended up giving away a lot of the pumpkins to others, and I think Colin got a few new friends because of it. I kept my word and took him out on Halloween. A few kids I've never met before going with him. I think that Jason Kidd was tempted to mess with him, but saw me trailing behind the group, so he didn't. This was only a temporary solution to the bully problem, but at least my brother got one fun night, and he now knew how I felt about him. We were about to head home, and was on the last few houses when somebody joined the small group. A kid about Colin's height, wearing a plastic jack-o'-lantern over his head. I stayed back and let them go up to a few houses together. Then the boy went off, waving at us in silent thank you for letting him join and be a kid, even if it was only for a few minutes. After that night, we never came across anything weird. I carried on working and Colin started doing art and things online to save up enough money to get into college for animation. We both got busy with life but made a point to hang out on Fridays. He even got me into a few of his animes. It turns out I really like those slices of life romance ones, because the plots are easy to follow, even if the names are pretty confusing. I hope when Halloween comes up again, y'all don't get into situations like we did. Be careful out there, because you never know when you'll be in the wrong place at the wrong time. The end. This has been Gray Stories. I hope you liked them. Good night.